Hello, bienvenidos. Welcome back to BilingLutes for our 5th episode. We're very excited today to talk about a number of topics that we think will be very helpful and relevant to our upcoming return to PLU. Así que bueno, vamos a empezar luego y primero que nada paso el control a mi compañero Luke.
Hey, welcome everybody. Bienvenidos a todos. Today we actually have a wonderful student, Anamaries, recent grad, 2020. We actually got to know each other really well over the past couple of years as a commuter student in the cave, and then she was involved in our D-Center activities and actually presented at orientation for our Bienvenido session for students or for family members, and helped get them to campus and really made them feel welcome. So I'll pass it to Anamaries. Do you want to say a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself?
Yeah, so me llamo Anamaries Garcia Marrero, soy de Corozal, Puerto Rico. Me acabé de graduar de Pacific Lutheran University en mayo 2020. Ahora mismo estoy trabajando con niños de las edades de 3 meses a 4 años y espero en el futuro ser una maestra o una psicóloga. Y mis pronombres son ella y ellas.
Muy bien, gracias, Ana.
De nada.
Awesome path. We need more teachers like you for sure. And I love the combination of psychology and education. So thinking along those lines, given that we're preparing for the fall, I was wondering if you would like to speak a little bit to the idea of community, especially right now, since our community and our sense of comunidad is going to be a little bit disturbed. Well, I should be honest and say very, very different from what we usually experience when we go to campus. And so I'm wondering what you would highlight about your own experience of community as a undergraduate. What are the things that you think about when you think about community? What would you like to highlight about the Latinx experience of community as an undergraduate?
All right. Por el pandemia, the sense of community is going to be very different compared to previous years because there's going to be a lot of regulations that are different, especially for PLU. As you've been reading the emails, there's going to be a lot of, isolation, and there's not going to be a lot of class meetings. It's only going to be for like bio majors, chemistry majors, and nursing students that need to be in the lab. And everything else is going to be online, and it is going to disturb our sense of community. But as the regulations fall and get more relaxed, that sense of community will be there. PLU tries to harness all communities, the Latinx community, the Black community, all the communities that exist within PLU, and is harnessed at the center of the D-Center. There is a lot of outreach to try to make you part of the community, and that community could be as big as PLU as just a community, or a community within each department, because depending on your department, those people will follow you for 4 years in a lot of classes. Or you could work on campus and your coworkers could be your own personal community. Or working at the D-Center, not only your coworkers there, but the people that walk into the D-Center. We have the cave. Well, that was transitioned now into the D-Center since that's been changing on. But those people there will become part of your family no matter what. Even being part of like ASPLU, they also become your own community. And community doesn't have to be a big group of people. It could just be 3 people, 2 people. It's about how that relationship between you guys are. Because as we know, family is not only blood. It's about those people that you have throughout your life that make a difference. And talking about the sense of moving from one community to another, I know as from personal experience, moving from a Latinx community, and that's all I knew moving into college, it was hard to distinguish. It was hard to separate them, in the sense that for a time, at least my first semester, I wasn't sure which community I belonged to. But at the end, I realized I still belong to both communities, my community at home and those people near me, like church, family, my old friends, and the POU community. They're both my communities. It was about trying to navigate between them. That made the difference. And making both communities understand that your time is split, but you're still part of it. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I got.
It's wonderful. Yeah, I think that's really leading into like what some of the students may be navigating this year, being like a commuter student or maybe a remote student, of being at home, trying to balance schoolwork at home, and also balancing like family obligations. And I know you did a lot of that with your sisters and with your mom and your family.
Yeah.
What tips do you have for, or maybe words of advice, or maybe how did you navigate that with your family members going from school and to home and to work, and you had multiple positions and
Oh yeah, me work.
it's no easy task.
Everybody was like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "Work or class? Bye." I think at least for the community at home, those people living closest to you, like living with your parents, at first they would feel like, at least to me, it was like, because I left home so early and came home so late, I felt like I missed a lot. And I think it might be a hard talk, but talking to your parents and talking about like the potential time you're gonna come back home, or like if you're coming Monday to Friday late from home, at least have like one time in the week that you're there, so you don't feel like you're missing out, and your parents or your siblings don't feel like you're getting detached. Because being detached, like let's say you're detached at home and detached in the community, you're more likely to get lost, in the sense that you might feel depressed, or you might feel like you don't belong in both, because you haven't been able to I don't want to say take a stand, but like be clear about what your needs are at home and your needs are at school. And it's all about having that conversation with those at home about the needs that you need to fulfill to be able to be successful at school. Because without that talk, the transition is going to be harder, and there's going to be a lot of what do I want to call that, like, I don't want to say resentment, or like bad vibes, I guess is the best way I can describe it.
Tension.
Because you know, when you walk into a situation that isn't perfect, you can feel it, and that will continue if you don't have that talk with both of your communities. And it is a hard transition. I think by my freshman year, I was only working one job, and I think by the end of my sophomore, one job at the beginning of the school year, and by the end of December, I was working two jobs. And by the end of sophomore year, beginning of junior year, I was working three. And I continued three jobs until I got laid off because of the pandemic. But that transition was hard. But the one thing that got me through all of it was talking to my community at home and talking to my community at work. And the most important thing for me was planning, having everything written down, from the time I would get to school and to my potential study times, potential break times, things that needed to be done that day or the next day. And I tried to get ahead of that. And then talking between POU and talking at home, I was like, I'll be home around this time, and then we can do something. And over here, be like, oh, I'm free around this time. Can we talk? Can we do study group? Things like that. But it's also very important to have time for yourself. Because the first year, I forgot about time for myself. It was just work, school, work, school, work, school. And then I learned at a certain, I think it was maybe sophomore year, that after 9 o'clock, if my homework wasn't done, it wasn't done. I would not continue, because not only did it get into my sleep time, it got to my personal time. And there has to be a stopping point. No matter if you're not done by 9 and it's due the next day, wake up earlier. It's hard, but wake up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wake up.
The way we all eventually learn to do it, right?
Wake up.
And Anamaries, I really want to highlight the great advice you're giving our audience members about having that critical conversation. Like, I wish I had the clarity to do that when I was a student.
It took a while, but it's a thing.
Yeah, but it's a really important thing to do, to articulate I really love how you said it, which is articulate what you need to be successful in your academics, right? And so that, and obviously it's tied to everything else you said, which is about well-being, about keeping your communities strong and your sense of community strong. And so I wonder, as a teacher, I wonder, when you said, when you started talking about needs, I was thinking, what do you think faculty need to know or should know about their students' needs right now? Or given your work schedule and given everything you're balancing, what would be like 3 things that you would say you would like faculty to be aware about?
Faculty? I have great professors the entire time, and I was always very open to them. Sometimes, like, there was a point in time in the semester that I got out like at 9:15 and class was at 9:20. And I told them, I was like, every day, let's say Wednesday, I will be late because I'm at work. And it's about that communication that's very important with your professors. They will understand. There might be that 1% that might not get it, but letting them know and making sure that you talk to your professors about your needs is also important, because if you don't talk to them, they're just going to assume you're slacking because you're not communicating your needs. Because I did it. At first I was like, I'll just come late, but then I felt like I didn't want to walk into class late, making them assume that I didn't want to be in class, but letting them know, hey, I have other responsibilities. I will be here. It's about that. Again, it's about that communication between the professors and anybody that walks into your life. You need to tell them about your needs. It might sound selfish, but it's the best form of communication. And I think the Latinx community is, again, it tends to stay within the family of the needs of each other, but it's hard for us to talk to others about what we need. We try to internalize that, but I realize you need to tell people what you need, because it's not going to work out and it's going to set you back.
Yeah, that's really good advice about like the constant need for communication. It's not just a one-time piece. It's like ongoing, and it's practicing long-term what that looks like. Because I remember when we were on staff together, you were pretty good about communicating, like, oh, I have XYZ before and after my shift, and sending texts in case it comes up, and keeping everybody in the know about where you're at. I mean, that was a perfect example of like showing how do. Or
like I would get out of the commons and run downstairs to our meeting. It was like, whoa, I'm coming, guys.
Yeah, I remember our group chat sending emojis and gifs and everything to each other. But it's a form of communication and a way of being open with each other about what our needs are. It's like, you need to get food, go get your food.
Yeah.
Or when you need a break, let people know when you need a break, or what the schedule is. So that's really good advice. I appreciate that. I think you talked a little bit about being a commuter for many years on campus. We were talking a little bit earlier. And that was a really good, that's really good advice for students who are coming in this year who maybe are not living on campus or need to balance what that is. For commuting, like, what are some commuting pieces that you lift for our students?
Commuter tips. I would say get there early if you have a car. If you're not being dropped off or being dropped off by the bus, get there around 8 o'clock, because the spots get filled really fast. Really fast. But I would say, as a commuter student, to try to be ready for anything that's possible within that day to happen, so you don't have to go back home. Because I might have lived 7 minutes, but I knew friends that lived 30 an hour away and would commute every single day. I have friends with kids. So it's about having, like, let's say you accidentally spilled something on you. Have an extra pair of clothes in the car, just in case something happens. Mm-hmm. And let's say you only have two out of the 4 classes you have on Monday. Let's say you have 2. But if you have time, make sure you have your books so you can try and get ahead on the homework or have the homework done a day early. Make sure you have everything for all the possible options or all the possible things that might happen that day. Mm-hmm. Even if, let's say, you're packed and let's say a meeting gets canceled, now you have free time. Yeah. You can go out with your friends, have some lunch, have some snack, or you can go ahead and get ready for your next assignment that's due. It's about being ready for all the possible outcomes of what's going to happen that day. So, and my first year at POU, I didn't have a car, and I also had ROTC my first year, and that one was a rough one. That one was a rough one. Yeah. Because I didn't have a car. My parents will either drop me off around, if it was ROTC time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they would drop me off around 6 o'clock with all my stuff. I would shove it in a locker somewhere. This one time I used 4 lockers, all my friends' lockers, because I didn't have anywhere to put it. But again, like, if you don't have communication with people or like start having open relationships or open friendships, like if I didn't know people or people even from the cave, like the cave was my community already my first year, and I already knew people there, I was just like, hey, can I borrow your stuff? And there it went all day, because I didn't have anywhere else to put it, because I wasn't, I guess you could say, trusting of campus at that point, because it was just my first semester. But little by little, I could have just left my stuff in the D Center and just walked away for hours and came back to it. Yeah. So it was rough, but I was trying to be ready for everything that happened that day. And that date included, oh, we're going on a 5-mile hike. Bring your bag. So I brought my ROTC bag and my school bag. With everything that was needed.
Yeah, be prepared for anything that will happen throughout the whole day. Yeah.
Bring snacks. Snacks are very important. Yeah, let me tell you.
Basic. Yes. Basic, elemental. Absolutely. Yeah.
Snacks are important.
This is really good. I'm sure you agree, Luke, for us to hear this, to think about how during a pandemic context, we can kind of help students either create chat groups or find ways of communicating with each other. Because your example, Anamaries, of like, I asked my friends to use, if I could use their lockers, for instance. Obviously with social distancing, that becomes a little bit harder. Yeah. But we can totally start to think about ways in which we can help students reimagine what that means, right? I'll text you, or maybe just a few of us always agree to share certain things, or I'll bring disinfectant. I think that's one of the things that has to go in that bag.
Yeah, I guess, that's going to be one of them. And I know that at least for the comments, it might be a little bit different. I know there's going to be takeout more. Yes. I also learned they added fa. Can never pronounce it. I know how to spell it.
Like, I'm saying I don't know because I'm trying to sound like I know.
I don't. And that little accent. But they've added new things to the comments, to the cafeteria, and it seems like time is now longer, but everything's going to be takeout. So it is going to be very hard this upcoming year, and I don't know how the commuter students are going to come into the building and be part of a community, because I've been thinking about it, and I've been reaching out to people, be like, I understand what's going to happen with students that live on campus, but what about those that don't and are like nursing students and like bio majors, chemistry majors? They have to be on campus, and I know they're going to isolate students when they come in to campus to make sure. But what about commuter students? They're at work, they're at home, and they can't be isolated. So what do we do then?
Mhm.
And it's gonna be a lot of trial and error this year for sure in the fall. And
We're
I don't
navigating
think,
a lot of new ways of opening
yeah,
opening school. We were just talking, me and Nicole from the D Center, we're talking about how do we open the D Center, how do we open the cave, how
yeah,
do we campus ministry, like working with our campus partners to see what the plan is really, because it's a really
yeah,
a new, like having students in our spaces and interacting. It's a new methods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's gonna go, and it
Yeah.
scares me because I
Yeah.
feel that this pandemic, I've been looking at research, and like marital abuse has gone up, and I'm pretty sure if I look it up, depression has also gone up, and like suicide tendency has gone up because of the isolation. And isolation is not good for any of us. And I feel that depending on how PLU handles the introduction of the new class and the continuing classes, that it will make an impact on the social emotional well-being of the staff
Mhm.
and the students and the faculty. And I don't know how it's gonna go.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful that this past year that we were able to get the Lute health, where students
Oh yes.
come in like 24/7 to a healthcare provider.
Mhm.
To that.
I was like,
So-
do I still have mine? I still have mine. It's
Oh,
right
you
here.
do?
Yes.
Oh,
There it
yeah, there you go. Let's see. Show it off.
Reminder for everyone and an introduction to it for our new students. I think you have to move it to the
Move it over to the camera
It's
side.
backwards. Give me a second. It's tied to my purse.
Yeah, put it right where the camera lens, so we can see where the camera. Oh yeah, there you go. There. Yeah.
Awesome.
Shout out.
I still have it.
So be sure to include that in one of
Yeah.
in
Oh,
our
both sides.
yes.
Lute
Yeah,
telehealth.
really important resource for all our students, and I'm sure they'll be hearing about it again. But yeah, and I
Yes.
think everybody's doing their best to, in their own unit, to figure all these really important questions you're asking out, Anamaries. I think one of the benefits of PLU is that the many benefits is that it's a smaller institution, and we can kind of have these conversations with students like you who have these really important questions, and kind of take them to
Yeah.
the committees and the groups that are trying to figure this out. So thank you for sharing those concerns.
And now that I talked about telehealth, the care forms, I think that's going to be very important this year, because you're not going to be able to see all your friends or communicate with all of them. And for the care form, you talk about what your concerns are, and so it's a form that you fill out for a certain person, and it goes to someone higher up, and they try to reach out to the students to see how they're doing, to make sure they're okay if you can't get in contact with them, which is very important. And I know PLU has pushed it in the past, but I think it's going to be very important now.
Yep, and that form is open to staff, faculty, students, and even friends and parents outside of PLU. So anybody can submit that care form. Yeah, we'll be sure to include that as well in the resources in our description today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So thinking as we maybe transition to a different topic, I know that you're a recent graduate. You graduated a couple months ago, and I think you, in our previous conversation we connected, you said this is your second day of work.
Yeah, so I've been working on base in a child center for a few months, and I've been finally inside the classroom because you need extensive background check before you can work with the kids here. But yeah, I'm here for a while, don't know how long, to make sure that because I want to get my master's, and I want to decide between a master's in education or a master's in school of psychology, and I wanted to see if working with children's 24/7 made me realize if I want to be a teacher or deal more with the school of psychology, which is more about mental health and well-being in general, than being in a classroom with all the kids. But so far I love it. There's rough days like any other job, but I think it's important to, at least for me, it's important for me to love my discipline, to love what I'm doing rather than be there for the money. I mean, the money's important, but at the end of the day, do you want to be miserable or do you want to love your job? And that's what I'm trying to figure out.
I love that. Muy bien. I'm all
I
for
want to love it.
Yes.
I don't want to dread going to work.
Yeah. And I remember you also mentioned when we were we were talking a while back too, that you are also first gen. So I was like wondering, how are you navigating the job responsibilities? Because you went from navigating school and going to work, classes, all that, and now you're a full-time employee.
Yeah.
So how are you navigating being
Part of
a
me
first gen
feels,
student? And
because I did so much in college, I feel like I'm not doing enough right now. And I want to get back to academia, but because of the pandemic, I'm going to probably postpone it a little bit longer. And I'm also potentially moving to Florida. So my boyfriend can follow his education because I've been here doing mine. So we're thinking about that. So we'll see how that goes. But right now, I want to go back to academia. I don't know if I told you, Luke, but we're waiting to see if one of our research papers is going to be published.
That's awesome, Anamaries.
So let's hope.
Nice. That's
hope.
fantastic. Congratulations. What is your paper on?
This paper was done by a international paper with nicer crowd? Nice, I think it was. And it was about adulthood and meeting those markers. So that transition from teens and preteens to adulthood, and those markers that we have of like getting a job, getting a house, and when we meet them. But because most of the research out there is done by white Americans, this sample is across 13 cities in the US, Ireland, I think it was Japan or Korea. I can't remember all of them because it was a group effort. There's like 20 authors. So it was to make sure to see if the markers are all the same in different communities and different races, different ethnicities. And it's not the same.
That's great to know.
Because cultures also makes a big change, a big difference in how we meet those markers.
Yep.
So
kind of part of
we'll see.
Yeah.
It was like a 2-year project, so it was pretty long.
Keep us posted. Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Yes, absolutely.
After they did triage, they haven't said anything, so I'm assuming we're in a good route. So we shall see.
Best of luck moving forward. That's awesome. It really reminds me of all your involvement as like a research assistant in undergrad.
Oh yeah, I forgot all about that.
Like the
and
women of color in psych.
Yes, women of color in psych. Internships. I did like 2 semesters of internship. 3?
Mm-hmm.
No, 3 semesters of RA, so research assistant, and 1 semester of internship.
Yeah,
I did so much I can't remember the order anymore. Enough to graduate.
Yeah. And great experience.
Yeah. I interned at the elementary, middle school, and high school. So I did a lot.
Yeah.
It felt like a lot at one point, but I felt like I could have done more. But I also realized I was stretching myself too thin most of the time. So I started to cut back. By the end of senior year, by my last semester, I wanted to take an extra class, but I chose not to because I didn't need to.
Reminds me of like what you were saying earlier about like what are your needs and recognizing that yourself and telling yourself what you need.
I was like, I don't need this. It was.
Yeah, and I think you're also pointing out how you kind of went full in in your first year, sophomore year, junior year, and kind of start to figure out what matters most to you. You figured out your organization, and I think the senior year is a really good year to kind of, do enough that keeps you fulfilled, but also helps you reflect on what you've learned. So I think you're giving our students really good models of.
Well, because I was like, I think 1 class away from a poli-sci minor, and I really wanted to finish it, but I was like, I don't need it. There's no reason for me to add more work to myself. Love the topic, but I don't need it. I want it. And I think that's a big important thing, the difference between needs and wants. One needs to know if it's a need or if it's a want. Because there were so many classes I wanted to take, but it wasn't necessary, or it took me away from the path I wanted to be at. And at some point, you do have to give up things. I wanted to take criminal psychology, but they were only doing it in the summer. I didn't want to pay for it, so I didn't do it. I wanted to take, at some point, my professor did a clinical psychology, wanted to take it, but I wanted to study abroad. So I chose the other way. And there was another one in the global studies department that I wanted to take with Dr. Grosvenor, and I can't remember the name. It was about, nationalism.
That's what I was going.
And that was my last year, and I really wanted to take it, but I had capstone, and I was like, no, I need to focus on capstone.
Yes.
Which my capstone was on the well-being of educators. So,
I think we'd all like to read your capstone.
Let's say we're all a little burned out, no matter what year you're in. But from that, I found out that the burnt out of teachers was not based on individual things. It was based on external things. So it was based on time constrictions that they couldn't change. It was based on the district, things that weren't part of the things that they could change. It wasn't the classroom, it was the outside sources that was frustrating for them.
Structure, that makes sense. Wow.
So,
yeah.
It was a great capstone.
It does. It sounds like an awesome capstone.
It was 20-something pages, and I had to delete a bunch.
So to switch gears just a bit, Adela, I wonder if we want to go to Palabra del Día?
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So we're going to start wrapping up, unfortunately, but we always like to end our show on kind of a note of sharing, Anamaries. And so we're going to ask you to think about a word or a phrase, either Spanish or English, you think is interesting or maybe frustrating or intellectually kind of raises some cultural differences because you can't really translate it into either English or Spanish.
Oh, man, I know these words. Azorado.
Azorado. Okay, so tell our audience.
How would you use it? And what is it?
It's when a child wakes up. It's when a child just wakes up and they're kind of grouchy and kind of scared. So azorado. But I can't find a word for it, and it's been bugging me.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
So it's an emotion. You're a little playing an emotion.
Yeah, it's like an emotion. So you wake up groggy and tired, and you're not sure what's going on. It's called azorado, but I don't think there's a word. Groggy maybe.
Groggy,
but that doesn't sound.
But you're also saying it kind of carries a meaning of an emotion. It's not just kind of a sense of a cognitive fog, but also there's an emotional element to it describing that is definitely one of those words.
I have a lot of words in my head, but that's the first one that came up.
Oh, I like that. And hopefully that's not what we're going to look like when the fall rolls around. Azorado.
It's mostly for little kids.
Scared, confused, sleepy.
Yeah.
No. Well, thank you so much, Anamaries. We really enjoyed so much talking to you. Mil gracias. Y nos has dado muchísimas cosas en que pensar, muchísimos consejos. It's been a really awesome way for me to meet you. I hadn't had the opportunity, so I'll
try to be on campus again, but
yes. Well, you'll have to tell us about your publications anyway. So
yeah. For
Cool.
sure.
Okay, well, thanks everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Cuídense.
Bye.
Hasta luego. Ciao.
Hasta luego.